Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the September 23rd, 2015 meeting to order. Ask you all to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Calder.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Here.
Mr. Bolano?
Here.
Mr. Calder?
Here.
Mr. Buffardi?
Here.
4 present.
We have a quorum. Before we continue, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to let us remember and pray for the victims of the terror attacks on September 11, 2001, and for their families, and let us pray for our military personnel serving in Afghanistan and Iraq, and remember and pray for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you. You will note that to my left where our town attorney Kate McGurl usually sits. We have Melanie Spalding who will be sitting in for her. She'll be our acting town attorney for a period of time that Ms. McGurl will not be with us. On a happier note, Ms. McGurl and her husband Matt Smith had a child on September 17th. They gave birth to Theodore Douglas Smith at 2:01 a.m. He was 7 pounds 14 ounces and is 21 inches long, and he is a happy member of the McGurl-Smith family right now. So our best to Kate and her family. We're going to move on to public hearing. Madam Clerk, please read.
To amend Chapter 257 of the Code of the Town of Rotterdam, New York, entitled Taxi Cabs to include requirements of current inspection and have a current New York State registration. There's nobody that signed up.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. We'll move on to public comment, privilege of the floor. Anyone signed up?
No. So can I pass?
Well, you don't have to read anything anyway, because we passed an amendment to the rules of order.
Nobody signed up.
Okay, we'll move on to the resolution portion of tonight's meeting. Resolution number 181.15. The clerk please read.
Upon the recommendation of the Chief of Police, appoint and promote Officer Kyle Gerard of Rotterdam, New York, 12306 to the position of Sergeant Second at the Town of Rotterdam Police Department, full-time probationary with full employee benefits at an annual salary of $84,588.66 effective September 28, 2015.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. It's my understanding after reviewing the contract that a promotion to sergeant at this time is required due to the minimum staffing rules. We ended up having a retirement last week, and we're simply filling a position that ends up being required. This individual would end up getting paid at an officer in charge rate whether we filled the position or not. So at this point I would actually recommend that this go through.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Milano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Calder, on the question. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Bolano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Congratulations, Sergeant Gerard. Manicus to come forward so we can do the oath of office.
Thank you. Kyle Gerard is an 8-year veteran of law enforcement, holds a criminal justice degree, and it will be my privilege to administer the oath to him. Come up. I do solemnly affirm
I do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of sergeant
the duties of the office of sergeant
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Good luck, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you very
Sergeant.
much.
Resolution number 182.15. The clerk please read.
Appoint and promote Edward Dixon and Joseph Disco of Rotterdam, New York, 12306, to the position of Senior Motor Equipment Operator Heavy for the Highway Department, full-time probationary, with full employee benefits at an hourly rate of $23.8882, effective September 28th, 2015.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. I just wanted to mention Mr. Dixon and Mr. Disco have been very reliable and have the ability to operate all the equipment. And they've been with departments since 1988, the both of them. And so we think that they're pretty valuable to the department, and we're glad to see this happen.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bofardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Will Mr. Dixon and Mr. Disco please stand so we can recognize you?
All right.
Number 183.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize the supervisor to negotiate and execute the contract with the New York State Office of Children and Family Services grant funding through Schenectady County Youth Bureau in connection with the Parks and Recreation Department to operate a summer recreational activity program, RAP, and preschool education program, PREP, for youth activities, and accept reimbursement in the amount not to exceed $4,000.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, a question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bofardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 184.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorize the supervisor to execute a 2015-2016 grant application for the purchase of office equipment and upgrades in the town of Rotterdam Justice Court under the State of New York Unified Court System Justice Court Assistance Program, JCAP, 187 Wolf Road, Albany, New York, 12205.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Just real quick, the key word is it's getting paid for by a grant, so this is a good thing.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lemore, a question? Please call the roll.
Mr. Lemore?
Yes.
Mr. Valano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bofardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 185.15, will the clerk please read?
Accept the proposal for professional services from the Chazen Companies located at 547 River Street, Troy, New York, 12180, for Hamburg Street Sanitary Sewer Collection System, Town of Rotterdam, Schenectady County, New York, in the amount not to exceed $4,925.
Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. This is a critically important improvement for the town. The Hamburg Street corridor, which is one of our main and original commercial districts in the town, has long suffered from the lack of services that are required to bring in larger commercial enterprises. Although there's ultimately a cost associated with upgrading your infrastructure, the alternative is to not pay the immediate cost, but to deal with the long-lasting cost, and that's to abandon this commercial corridor, which has seen decline over the last several decades. Although there will be pain in paying for any improvement, even though it will come at a significant discount if we do it in conjunction with the DOT improvement that's going to be taking place. The state of New York is going to be putting possibly $8 million-ish in sidewalk, lighting, roadway upgrades in that area. The town has a unique opportunity for a few $1,000,000 to provide sewer service to that same area. If we don't put it in now, considering the amount of money that state DOT is going to be putting into this corridor, we could find ourselves handcuffed to the current condition of Hamburg Street. Although it may look better, there will be no more commercial development. And we will be looking at a long game of 20 to 30 years of leaving Hamburg Street like this. I certainly hope that when we end up getting the numbers back from the engineering department, that it will be palatable enough that the taxpayers will go forward and vote affirmatively for the taxing district that they're going to have to undertake. Certainly, the alternative will be stark for that district. I'm certainly one that is a fiscal conservative. I'm very tight on the purse strings. But there's some expenses that we just can't ignore and some projects that we can't just let go. So this is only the first of many steps. I look forward to this going forward, and I sincerely hope the people of this town will get behind this rejuvenation, this renaissance of a long ignored district.
Any other discussion?
I'll just mention one thing.
This started in 2011, and Chasen did engineering back then. All this does is give us a chance to update what they've done in the past. And like Mr. Villano said, after that, it's up to the people and what the boards do up here to see that this goes forward. I hope it does, but we'll have to see. But this is what this money's about. Thank you.
I'd like to add that this is a required step for us to submit, and we're time constrained, so we have to do it now. So we can have the opportunity for the possibility of putting a pipe in the ground when the road is all dug up. It seems kind of pointless for us not to do this increased discount that we'll receive with the state going through with this grant. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Villano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have competing seconds. I will take Mr. Lamore's. On the question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 186.15, will the clerk please read?
A resolution to allow payment to Empire Paving, 1982 Duanesburg Road, Duanesburg, New York, 12056 for the Town of Rotterdam Road Paving, 2015 fiscal year, in an amount not to exceed $273,550.59.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Villano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Lamore, on the question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 187.15, will the clerk please read?
The Town Board of the Town of Rotterdam declares an emergency and authorizes the expenditure of funds on an emergency basis for the purpose of replacement of a damaged water maintenance truck that has a blown engine and is implorable in the amount not to exceed $60,000.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, the question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 188.15, will the clerk please read?
Call for bids to be open on Wednesday, October 28th, 2015 at 10 a.m. at the John F. Kirban Government Center, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306 for the purchase of standardized uniforms and equipment for the police department for a 2-year period commencing January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2017.
Any discussion?
A quick inquiry, Mr. Supervisor. This is only giving us prices for any of these products. This isn't committing any of our funds to purchase anything at this time, correct?
Correct. It's called for bids. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 189.15, will the clerk please read?
Call for bids to be opened on Wednesday, October 28th, 2015 at 10:15 a.m. at the John F. Kirban Government Center, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306 for dry cleaning services for the police department for a 1-year period commencing January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2016.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Lamore, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Villano, question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 190.15, will the clerk please read?
Call for bids to be open on Wednesday, October 28th, 2015 at 10:30 a.m. at the John F. Kirban Government Center, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306 for car washing services for police vehicles for the police department for a 1-year period commencing January 1st, 2016 through December 31st, 2016.
Any discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Mr. Villano, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Calder, the question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 191.15, will the clerk please read?
Accept town clerk's report for the month of August 2015.
Any discussion? Entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, the question, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Buffardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. Number 192.15, will the clerk please read?
Authorized budget transfers by the town comptroller to various accounts for 2015, leaving out the line item, get it here, A 1670 4701 and A 1990 47 4172 will be left out.
Any discussion?
Which one? Those aren't the numbers I have.
I thought you said that. Oh, I'm sorry. My fault. Hang on. I'm sorry, A3120 and A3120, 2530, and A3120, 4900. Sorry about that.
All right, good. Thank you.
Yes, and those are for the building repairs for the police department at
Correct.
this time.
Any discussion? I'd like to add that this was, a friendly amendment was made to this in agenda session, that Mr. Villano is going to take the opportunity to actually tour the site and review the bids, and then we'll vote on it in the near future.
The reason for my request to remove this is not that I have any belief that the work's not required. It's, quite frankly, I have no idea what work was going to be required until about halfway through the agenda session. I finally received bids for the work that was going to be performed. My concern is after a dissolution of our local dispatch and sending of those employees over to central dispatch, the police department is asking for an expenditure of $30,000 for an area that I'm currently of the belief is underutilized. I mean, there are periods of time that, you know, the police doors are locked. I mean, we're not a 24/7 police department where you can actually get in and visit people. You know, improving a reception area that isn't necessarily used isn't a priority of this town, especially considering that this particular expenditure would result in a 0.3% tax hike. Every $10,000 is about 0.1%. Next year, we are going to be up against a tax cap of about 0.75%. To utilize half of our additional increase for next year, even though this is coming out of this year's budget, on a project that I know nothing about, would not seem to be, you know, a wise use of our resources. So I do expect to tour the police department tomorrow, and there'll be feedback at the next meeting.
If I could just clarify, we do have a 24/7 police department, but the dispatch center has been closed at police headquarters, so those doors are locked. But our police officers are out 24/7, 365 days a year, so I just want to make sure everyone understood that. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Calder, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, on the question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Lamore?
Yes.
Mr. Villano?
Because of the amendment, I cannot vote yes.
Mr. Calder?
Yes.
Mr. Bofardi?
Yes.
4 yes.
Resolution carries. This concludes the resolution portion of tonight's meeting. Does anyone have anything under committee reports? Does anyone have anything under miscellaneous?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. About 5 minutes before the meeting, I was handed an email from the deputy supervisor suggesting that the passage of a local law is actually required to add specific inspectors to perform electrical inspections within the town of Rotterdam. I would hope that the town administration can coordinate with the Department of Public Works Coordinator, Vince Romano, get a list of those that are qualified and get it added to the next meeting as an agenda request from me. This is something that I've been asking about for several meetings. We've had many of the electrical inspectors come back wondering, you know, why they can't perform these services. I mean, if they are qualified, I would like to get them added to the list as soon as possible. On a second note, I regret to inform the people of the town of Rotterdam that I finally did end up hearing back from George Amador's office. The town of Rotterdam has been denied its money for the sewer system this year over on Burdick Street. I have followed up on it on a monthly basis, and the explanation that I received from Caitlin of his office was that our project simply was too big and that we would be considered for next year's budget. I certainly don't know what the change of heart is. I was very hopeful that we could open up a new business corridor with sewers in this town. Burdick Street certainly could become our next Altamont Avenue. It's an opportunity for us going forward. Certainly any members of the town of Rotterdam, people that are interested in further development, should contact Senator Amador's office and ask for him to press this project very hard. I would like to see this project go through sooner rather than later. I mean, if we are gonna have a bunch of development in this county, with the casino, with a lot of the projects that Metroplex has been bringing to downtown, it would be nice to see some development happen in the town of Rotterdam. Unfortunately, we are limited by the infrastructure. So please contact Senator Amador's office and, press that this get pushed through. I have nothing further, Mr. Supervisor.
Anyone have anything else under miscellaneous? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Mr. Valano, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Lamore, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.